Tony.
Hey, Bill.
Hey.
What you doing?
Well, I was going to call you, but I don't have a phone.
Oh, no.
So anyway, I'm glad I found you. So we're going to start our lesson for this Sunday.
Yeah? So why don't you have a phone?
Well, I had an old flip phone, and it just gave up on me. And I'd like to get one of those new iPhones,
Mm-hmm.
but they're pretty expensive.
They are expensive.
Yeah.
They are.
But it would come in handy. I could use it for work and, just so I could be in touch and not out of touch and trying to find you all over this building.
Mm-hmm.
But anyways, we're here, so.
Yeah? Have you asked God
For a phone?
Yeah?
I never thought about praying for a phone. I really want one though.
Well, I don't know if you remember a story in the Bible about Hannah.
What book is that in?
Well, remember we stopped at the end of Judges,
Mm-hmm.
and Samuel is right after Judges.
Okay.
And Hannah is the mom of Samuel.
Okay. Okay.
And so,
Now the judges, the book of Judges was not so good for,
No.
for the nation of Israel.
people were getting out of control. They
It
were
did,
cray-cray.
I remember the verse on the very end. It said, "In those days there was no king in Israel, and everyone did what was right in his own eyes."
They did. They did. They were following their own idols and wants, and were not listening. They
Yeah.
weren't listening to God at all.
Okay.
Um,
And God was king. God is king. And
Yeah.
yet they wanted
they wanted like a physical king.
an earthly
Somebody
king. Okay.
that did what they wanted them to do. you know.
Sounds
Um,
familiar.
But Hannah, she wanted a child, and she wasn't able to have a child.
Okay.
And so, just like the phone, she prayed to God, said, "Hey, I really want a child. I really want a child." And she trusted that God would give her one. Even through all of this turmoil and all these other people saying that they, not even listening to God, not believing in Him, doing their own thing, Hannah believed and trusted that God would give her one and said, "Hey,
Give her a child.
give her a
Not a
child."
phone.
Not a phone,
Okay.
not a phone. They didn't have phones back then.
Okay.
I don't think.
But I really need a phone. But go ahead. I'm sorry.
I know. Well, and I'm going to get to that. But, Hannah, she prayed and she's like, "God, I will give over my child to you if you give me a child." That's a big deal.
That's a big deal.
That's a really big deal.
So if I ask God for a phone and for my own selfish reasons, for my own personal use,
Yeah, you got to have trust and faith to even ask God
true.
to deliver that. And, I'll make you a deal. I'll give you this brand new iPhone 11,
Ooh,
but
stipulations.
but you have to use it for God's glory. Can you do that? I'm going to give it to you, but you have to in turn give it to the church.
Physically
And-
give it to them or
and
use it?
Physically.
Oh my.
And use it for God's glory. Now, I know a lot of the church people, I'm kind of in with some of them.
Yeah.
So I might can talk them into letting you use it some.
Okay.
But you have to use it for God's glory. Because that's what it's for.
I'll do my
So,
best.
can you do that?
I'm going to try.
All right.
And I'm going to trust God to, it'll be useful to me and hopefully for His glory.
Right, because God gives us things, but He wants us to share Him.
Okay.
And this is a great opportunity for you to use what I give you to glorify Him and to tell others, call them up, check on other people, tell them about God. You know, use your Facebook app, all that kind of stuff. You can tell them about God through this right here.
Okay. And we would have been able to communicate a little bit about our lesson we're going to do
Right.
beforehand.
Are
instead
you
of
ready for
coming in.
that?
Yeah, I'm ready. I'm familiar with the first part of Samuel, so let's look at it and see what happened after Hannah.
All right, sounds good.
Okay.
Here's your phone.
Thank you so
Mhm.
much. That's very nice. Thank God.
Yeah. Tony. Yeah. Did y'all call me? Don't guess so. Tony. Yeah. Okay. I know I'm hearing my name. Tony. Okay. I know I heard it that time. I know I did. Hey, Bill! Bill!
Hey, Tony.
Hey, okay, so I've come in here 3 times,
Yeah.
and I know I'm hearing my name. I know I am.
Woody and Karen.
Yeah, Bill, I don't think they're talking.
No. Well.
No. Did you say my name?
No. Maybe you need to go back and have you been praying? Have you been listening?
Well, I pray. I pray every day.
Our prayer is.
I've never heard God say, "Hey, Tony,"
Yeah.
to me personally, but
Well, part of praying is listening. It's not all just one-way conversation. You've got to listen to a response.
like an audible response.
In the book of Samuel, there was, yes.
Huh? You'll have to tell me about that.
Okay.
All right, Bill. Tell me about this Samuel thing and audible prayers and God talking to you and all that kind of
Well,
stuff.
yeah, we're talking about hearing and recognizing God's voice. I think the key is recognizing that it's God telling you. There's so many outside influences, so many things that we're bombarded with that through prayer, through Bible study, through things, God will speak to us through Manly's sermon, through Andrew's worship music.
Oh yeah.
So
I
we want to.
definitely can feel God through. I'm a big worship person. I
Yes.
love some music
Yes.
and you know.
Caleb, my attitude throughout a day, if I listen to Caleb, is a lot different than if I don't listen to anything, or it just puts good things in my mind and my heart versus what I would in quiet start conjuring up in my mind.
Oh yeah.
But how do we hear and recognize God's voice? You know, you came in and you asked Woody and you asked Karen, did you call me? And, you know, of course, that was a skit too.
Yeah, they didn't say much.
No.
Karen's
they
kind of
just-
quiet.
Woody here is kind of, I guess he's okay. But Samuel had heard God's voice but didn't recognize it. Why do you think that was?
Well, from what I remember reading in the Bible, you know, Samuel didn't know a whole lot about God.
No.
And his mom brought him, you know, she had him and had promised to give him back to the Lord for his glory, kind of like your phone, you know,
Yeah.
and
Thank you.
you know, and she brought him, and Eli was the one that was pouring into him and teaching him
Mm-hmm.
about God. And so he didn't know a whole lot about God. Plus, you know, like you had talked about in Judges, nobody was really listening to God. They didn't know how to listen to God. You know, they weren't paying attention at all. And so,
Yeah, and in verse 7 in chapter 3 in 1 Samuel, it says, now Samuel did not yet know the Lord, nor was the word of the Lord yet revealed to him. A lot of us know about God, and we might come to church, but to personally know the Lord.
So it sounds like to me that like listening, listening to God is kind of like having an intimate relationship with Him, a personal relationship
Personal
with her,
relationship,
with Him.
yes. It's not I want a phone, I need a phone. But when God asked me to use that phone for His glory, I go, well, maybe I don't need it that bad. Maybe there's another way. But God said, I am the way.
Right.
Jesus said, I am the way. So this was a start of God revealing Himself, a revelation to Samuel. He revealed Himself to him in a personal way, and Samuel came to know Him in a personal way.
So when he finally listened to God, what did God tell him?
Well, He told him about the leadership at that time in
Like Eli?
Eli and his sons. There was a note in my Bible about when Samuel went to Eli and said, "Did you call me?" And Eli said, "No." So it took Eli 3 times to say, "Well, maybe you need to go back and listen. Maybe God's trying to talk to you." But he was the high priest of Israel, and yet it took him 3 times to recognize maybe God is talking to this young man. And so he wasn't really in touch with God, in tune with God, or walking with God.
So God went to talk to the boy,
Yeah.
to Samuel, and not even the high priest.
And then he knew that his sons, he didn't have control of his family because his sons were doing just basically whatever they wanted. And they were, in the hierarchy, they were in line to be the next high priest.
Wow.
So therefore, we're just continuing the line of disobedience, just like we talked about in Judges. People did whatever was right in their own eyes. And I think we talked about this. How does God speak to us, though?
You know,
Because you asked me, is that an audible voice that I'm supposed to hear?
yeah, because at 41 years old, I don't know that I've ever heard an audible voice telling me.
Yeah. Would you be very skeptical if someone said that people will say, I heard from God.
Yeah. Do I believe that God could, I think that God can speak to you, but my thing is I tend to be real busy, and I think a lot of it has to do with, spending time with God. That develops that relationship that we talked about listening. We're supposed to be listening to the truth, and we're not going to know if it's the truth if we're not spending time in the Word to know the truth.
Yeah. I heard people describe before, you're in a service and Manly or Tad, any number of preachers, but you sit there and I thought they were talking directly to me.
Mm-hmm.
And they are, and God is, the Holy Spirit are talking directly to you. Now, the pastor might not realize that. He knows there's someone in that room that God is dealing with, but God speaks through those individuals.
I think that's where preparing your heart, being willing to, we start our Sunday school lessons and a lot of things, we start out with prayer. Mm-hmm. And I know we've talked I've heard a lot say, open your ears and your hearts. Mm-hmm. And your heart has to have that willingness to listen.
Absolutely.
And not just to listen, but to hear what He's saying, be submissive, and to also obey to what He's telling you to do.
Yeah.
And so you've got to have that open heart when you go in and you start that music,
How do we prepare our hearts to receive God's Word?
Preparing our hearts, I know you and I have talked about this before a lot on all the different ways that we can hear God. And spending time with him is a way to prepare your heart. But being still, in Psalms 46:10, I know a lot of people have heard, it's a really, I say famous, verse, because we use it a lot. Be still and know that I am God. That's knowing the truth. Being still, knowing that He is God, He is the King, He is the ultimate power, and listening to Him, that He will be exalted among the nations and among the earth. And I think being still and allowing yourself, putting away all the distractions, your phone, the bulletin, all those kinds of things.
And then Andrew or worship leader comes up and speaks to you through song.
Yeah. Don't think about the person beside you.
Don't look out, see everybody's dressed.
Right.
Karen.
Yeah, Karen's she's a choir. So a lot of people notice her up in the choir.
Yeah. Well, what does Woody do? I haven't seen him around. You know what he does in church?
Probably grounds crew.
Looks kind of like it.
Mm-hmm.
He does a good job,
We
though.
have a great grounds crew.
Yeah, we do.
I bet he was part of that.
Yeah.
So I think too, having a willingness to trust him. Hannah trusted him in the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
That was the story I was telling you about earlier. About she trusted when so many other people around her
And she had
weren't listening, and she had faith that God was going to give her what she was asking for. Just like you were wanting and asking for a phone. I don't know how much faith you had in me that I would give you one. But
Well, God gave Samuel, He revealed to him His judgment on Eli and his family. Which is, Samuel had to operate on. I think he was afraid. It says in the third, chapter 3, it says, Then the Lord said to Samuel, Behold, I will do something in Israel at which both ears of everyone who hear it will tingle. And that day I will perform against Eli all that I have spoken concerning his house from the beginning to the end. So the judgment that he told Samuel was against Eli and his family. So what happened when he woke up the next morning? Because Eli was the one, he was involved in all this because he told him, he said, go back and maybe you need to just go back and listen. I think God's speaking to you. So when Samuel woke up, he said, what did God tell you? What did God tell you? And Samuel was like,
that had to be scary because he was a boy still.
yeah, and tell him what God told him. But Eli responded, he asked him, what is the word that the Lord spoke to you? Please do not hide it from me. Then Samuel told him everything and hid nothing from him, and he said, it is the Lord, let him do what seems good to him. So he knew, he was convicted at that point that that judgment was held off for quite some time. And was impending at that point because God had told Samuel. Samuel was faithful. Hannah was faithful. They listened and responded to what God told them to do.
I think a lot of times pride gets in the way. We may listen, and maybe even hear what God's telling us, but the pride that you get on, I don't want to get in trouble, I don't want to hurt somebody's feelings, I don't want to be embarrassed, that kind of comes into play with, okay, God, we have to trust and to be able to listen, but we also, like I mentioned before, have to be submissive and obey what He's telling us. There's a reason why God's telling us to do that.
Oh, I had something written down here and I can't find it. But yeah, all those factors that weigh on us after we know what God would want out of us. We know, but there's peer pressure. There's what our friends are going to think. do I have the faith to go through with it?
Mm-hmm.
And even, you don't have to be a teenager to feel like that. You could feel like that as an adult.
Oh, yeah.
Even when you want to go witness to someone, and we go back to, I know we've been out of church a long time, but we still have that Who's Your One program, promotion. And, it's not that difficult to choose your one and pray for your one. But what if God presents the opportunity to talk to your one and witness to your one? That's where I would
Clam up.
climb up.
Right.
And not an intentional disobedience, it's just, I'm afraid.
Well, I think a lot of the fear is the fear of the unknown.
Mm-hmm.
I think everybody's experienced that over the last couple of months
Yeah.
with COVID and everything. It's the whole fear of the unknown. And
it goes beyond right now. I mean, it's gotten
yeah.
better, but we still don't know what the coming school year is going to look like. Can you go to your restaurant or have a 4th of July get together like you normally do because people can't be together?
even us opening church back up.
Yeah, a couple of weeks.
But and we don't always know what God's plan is. But I think if we resist him, I think we're going to miss out and maybe never know what
Absolutely.
God had planned because I wasn't willing to obey what he asked of me. And maybe because of my disobedience, someone else is missing out.
True.
I'm missing getting to tell someone else about Christ and what he's done for me because I did not take that opportunity,
Mm-hmm.
and, we've got to have that attitude of servanthood and kind of push away our own natural desires to control situations.
Yeah, and Samuel throughout the book, I'm sure we'll cover a lot of points, but he didn't back down from telling the truth to the kings that God appointed at that time.
Yeah. So, thanks for telling me about Samuel, and
Yeah.
sometimes we need to be reminded of some of these stories. I thank you guys for listening to us today. One thing that I want to encourage everybody, even me and you, Bill, ask God questions this week and go in with an open heart, a willing heart to listen and, to listen to what his responses are.
I
So,
agree.
all right. Well, we hope you guys have a great week.
Y'all have a great week.
Bye, Karen.